welcome back to my channel and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Mals. Today we have someone super special in our studio. She is from Mumbai. She acquired her MBBS from MGM Medical College, Navi Mumbai, and her diploma in OBGYN from MGM Hospital, Aurangabad right after. She's currently doing her DNB. In her 3 years of work experience, she delivered over 100 babies and has done multiple surgeries, big and small. She attended multiple conferences and believes in continuing to learn and grow in her field. She's young, enthusiastic, and takes a very special interest in spreading knowledge and awareness regarding women's reproductive health. So please help me in welcoming Mrs. Divya Vora.
Hi Malvika, thank
Hi.
you so much for that flattering introduction. I mean, I don't remember being called like that and giving such a long intro, but thank you so much. Thanks a lot for having me here. And the fact that this is a real talk makes me want to do it even more.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's with you makes it all the more fun. So thanks a lot.
You're so welcome. We are so honored to have her here because I'll tell you more about our story. Actually, it's really special. But first, let me tell you what this video is going to be about, okay? So I'm going to tell you a lot about our relationship, but first, let me tell you what this video is going to be about, okay? So we're going to talk about the basic anatomy of the female reproductive system, menstrual cycle and knowing it fully, and also period myths, which we all need busted. And the basics of PCOS and how we can prevent it, safe sex and STIs, and contraception. Such a vast umbrella of topics.
I know, and it's still not complete, right? There's so much we need to talk about all the time, and there's so much that's so less spoken about, especially in our country.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we can pick up these topics, and I'm glad we can discuss them. I can get to know your point of view about them too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so both of us are 29. Okay, we're gonna turn 29, right? Yeah, and I have a very long relationship with Divya. Let me tell you a little bit about us. Actually, we studied in school together, so we basically grew up together actually, and she was my partner in school as well. And then I vividly remember asking her, you know, what do you want to become when you grow up? And I remember her saying doctor, specifically like a gynecologist, and she is a gynecologist today, which is how many of us know what we want to do at 5th grade? That's crazy. So we lost touch in the middle, but then we got back in touch, and we've been in touch ever since. Like, we just can't get enough of each other because she has so much knowledge to give, and I feel like I just want to keep absorbing everything I can from her because I love learning. So, so Divya, tell me more about you and your childhood. How was your childhood like growing up?
Listen, first of all, I have so much to learn from you. I mean, I still can't put my liner right, and I have to go back to watching Mal's videos to see how to put the liner right or how to put a foundation. So thank you. You in your ways are making people and women and men around the world feel beautiful about themselves. So that's lovely. Thank you for that.
Thank you, babe. That's so
coming back to school.
Tell me about your childhood and your school days.
First of all, I'm going to start with a story where I remember being awestruck by you doing all the snippets from Jab We Met and going all, "Main apni favorite hu." And the whole class used to go crazy about Mals, where she wanted to be this bibbo.
I do.
And she used to just do the mimicry and all the imitations so well, and we used to be so awestruck, and I used to be this girl with large spectacles and unibrows, and I couldn't even look at myself, but I was like, main to doctor banungi. Ye actress ban sakti hai. And never had we thought that we'd cross paths like this. It's so beautiful how me with my field and you with yours can even cross paths thanks to social media and thanks to the need for education and the need for awareness right now. It's the need of the hour, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Like, I also remember doing all of that craziness.
I used to get so excited about biology class. So, you know, this is where all that stems from. So, the whole fact that I loved biology and I loved science and seeing doctors made me feel so noble, right? The profession seemed so noble to me, and the fact that I could help people, I could give people injections and probably do surgeries. At that point, all this seemed really small, and all this seemed like, oh my god, I have such a nice doctor set. I love playing doctor.
Wow.
But when you come to this side of it, obviously you see the dark and the bright side of everything, which is with every profession. But very honestly, I had no pressure from my parents. I come from a non-doctor family. I had no pressure from anyone around me or the competition around us. Very honestly, I believed in healthy competition all the time, and I still do. I try to be at the top of my game always. When it was with academics, I sucked at sports, as we can see, and as we know, like I was then throwball sucked at that time. So I always knew I wanted to be academically oriented, and that does not just mean that if I'm academically oriented, I would want to be a doctor. But you know, when you are at the top of your game and you're a topper, people go into the direction of ye to doctor banegi, ye to engineer banegi, ye to engineer banega. These are the notions that people have in their minds. So this also was an additional notion I had in my mind that, you know, I want to be a doctor. I think I'm intelligent. I think I can do it. I want to be a doctor. But very honestly, when you get into the field, intelligence has nothing to do with it. You have to work hard, you have to work smart, and you just have to be willing to help. That's all. You don't need factors like intelligence and smartness and IQ and these kind of things to come into the picture. Be what you want. Do what you want.
That's so good. That's such a good perspective. Oh my God.
So that for me, and the fact that I love babies. I just love babies. So I've always loved them, and I feel really connected to these pregnant women. I really feel like they have something so pure and so spiritual about them. So I've always enjoyed talking to pregnant women even when I was a little baby, and I used to be like, oh, you're gonna have a baby, are you? So that's something that really fascinated me, and people have questioned me that if you love babies, why weren't you a pediatrician? Why are you a gynac? Why are you an obstetrician? So my answer to that always is that I'm not okay with sick babies because they make me cry. I can't see babies sick. So I'm very happy with a baby getting delivered, however, vaginally or by cesarean section, and I'm happy to see that baby cry only then, because that's when I know the baby's fine and alive, and that's the relationship, and that's where I want to leave it. I want to see a nice, healthy, happy baby come alive. So it's that, and how I feel about women and our tribe, and how I want to help them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, that's such a new perspective. I always thought like to be a doctor, like you said, you gotta be intelligent and smart, and I could never become a doctor. But the fact that you said you just need to help, you just have to have that willingness to help, that just struck a chord with me. I'm like, absolutely, when that is your intention, you go all the way. Then nothing else matters after that. You do everything you possibly can to help. So, I mean, she's like full of compassion, which I love. I feel like doctors with compassion and just like, it's so fulfilling. I'm getting goosebumps when she said like, you know, I just wanted to help moms and I don't want to see a sad baby. And I was like, that makes so much sense. I can relate. Yeah, okay, so, and she became a gynac, a very good one at it. I'm always amused and like always shocked when I see her stories like of baby deliveries, because I'm like, I've known her since like a kid, and I'm like, you delivered that baby, like you literally did. She's like, yeah, Ma, it's like, I'm a doctor.
Yeah, like when did we grow up so much? I still remember Malvika being the girl with the plait and her specs, and she's jumping around class and going, hey, main to baat karne wali hu, even if you're the monitor. Like this is what Malvika used to be, right? And she's so prim and proper and teaching people how to look their best and be their best. Like we've grown so much. I enjoy seeing this. I love this. And I still feel it's like us sitting in 9th standard and chatting on our desk and you moving my hand because I'm a lefty. So
she remembers everything. She has a good memory. You're right. She was a lefty and I was a righty, and we used to like...
So used to...
Yeah. So this brings us to our first topic. I really want to ask you, like, at what age should one start visiting a gynac? Is there a particular age?
So Malvika, very honestly, in our country, we've been, you know, spiraled around such a way that we're told that आपको problem होगी तो आप doctor के पास जाइए. आपको कोई issue है तो ही आप doctor के पास जाइए. So what eventually ends up happening is that, you know, girls having some period issues, or girls not getting their period by the age of say 16 or 17, or them having a heavy flow or a reduced flow or irregular menses, these are the girls that are actually coming to gynacs at an early age. So nobody has been told that, listen, you're 18 now, you probably will get sexually active very soon, you must visit a gynac, you must have someone you can trust, you must have someone you can tell your story to, someone you can, you know, follow up with throughout your life as much as it's possible, and tell them what your issue is and have yourself evaluated, right? This is the way to go about it. So if you hear about the customs and if you hear about what happens abroad and the practices abroad, me as a gynac myself, I learned so much about when women start going to their gynecologist, where they say, I am going to my gynecologist and I am going to get my tests and examination done. Why? Because it's a routine test. I need to have it done. Right? This is so basic. It's something you need to do every year or every 2 years. It's something that need not require a problem to occur. You need to know what's happening inside your body, right? And even now, if I talk to people and I have so many patients coming to me, they do not know the difference between the vulva and the vagina. So I'm glad you know that difference. I'm glad you had to educate yourself, right? You had to read up about it. That should not be the case, right? So the answer to your question is, please go to a gynac as soon as you think you're going to be sexually active. Or even before that, when you have menstrual irregularities. If you're well educated, if you've understood about your menstrual cycle, if you've been fortunate enough for your parents to have taught you well about this and educate you well about the whole menstrual cycle and how it's going to go, how you're going to feel, how your body is going to react differently to these hormonal changes, you may not need to visit a gynac as soon as 16. But please visit a gynac each time you realize there's something abnormal happening with you. And how do you know there's something abnormal happening with you? By knowing what the normal processes are. As simple as that.
That is so true, because it opened my eyes, because it took me back to my early teen years where I was not taught any of this, because my mom, I guess, grew up without her parents most of her life, so there was no one to educate her about the reproductive system, about, you know, having your periods and everything. So she had to figure it out with using cloth and things like that, which I feel so bad when she tells me, like all of our moms, you know, went through. And so she never spoke to me about my periods or, like, you know, being sexually active. It was always a taboo. And I feel like specifically here, I feel like, you know, Indian parents or moms in specific like to be in denial of your child being sexually active, which is totally fine. But I was very clueless growing up. I remember hiding my periods for a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
And how did you deal with it? Like,
I was very scared, and I've never told this story before, and I'm glad I'm able to say this today, but I was very, very scared when I saw blood for the first time. I knew about periods, but I did not know that it was gonna hurt so much. I was in so much pain, Divya. I remember being in school in 7th grade, I got it, and I didn't tell my mother for 3 months, and I used to put like tissues and cloth to like hide it because I was embarrassed. I was very embarrassed that I was bleeding, and I did not know that this is something natural, and no one was there to guide me. I was really scared to tell my mom because she never prepared me, right? And it's not her fault, it's just that she was not also taught the same thing. So after 3 months, I could not take it. It was so painful, and I had a really heavy flow, like obnoxiously heavy, and I could not take the cloth and tissue anymore because it was all over. And I remember my pinafore being like completely bleeding, and I remember that, and I used to like run home with full blood, and I used to be so embarrassed, Divya, like, so I used to wash my own like shorts so my mother doesn't see it. Like, why? You know, and I was like so young, and then I just texted my mother because I was so embarrassed. I'm like, I think I got my periods, and she's like, it's okay, there's a sanitary napkin behind it. She handled it really beautifully. But after that, I was comfortable. But I totally get your point. Like, I feel like if someone would have told me about it or took me to the gynac, I would have felt so much at ease that, okay, it's a normal thing.
Absolutely.
Right? So, okay, so visit the gynac like immediately, because I have a lot of parents on my channel, like a lot of young parents. So I feel like, you know, you can take your daughter to the gynac whenever you feel is the right time, whenever she's in school, I guess.
Of course, if you as a parent are finding it a little hard and you're finding it a little embarrassing to talk to your daughter about menstruation, if you're not being able to do it, it's not your problem. It's our problem. Come to us and we will definitely help. There's no issue with that at all, because it's so important to counsel menstruators about this, right? It's so important to know what's going on in your body, because it's not just 4 to 5 days of bleeding. It's a lot going on before that. It's a lot going on after that. There's breast soreness, there's headache, there's mood swings, and all of us deal with that. See, there was a time maybe say 20 to 30 years ago, where we just had to like shush these topics and be like, hota hai yaar,
Yeah.
period hai, jaane de yaar.
Yeah.
But why? Why should you have to deal with it? I am PMSing, I want the day off. It's completely okay. It's your body, it's your period, it's your cycle. You deal with it the way you want to.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and that's why education is so important, especially for young girls knowing that, and young parents on my channel. It's completely fine. We have amazing doctors that are willing to talk to
Malvika, do you remember? I mean, we haven't been taught about this in school.
No, we haven't.
I remember that we used to have these educational
Sex
classes.
ed. Yeah.
Where we were taken to a particular hall.
Yep.
Sex ed was done for 10 minutes at a very low volume. Acha ye hota hai, acha ye hota hai. There's this, you'll get your period. And by the time we get oriented, Mary Poppins is being played on the screen. Why? I don't want to watch Mary Poppins. I want to know about menstruation.
Yes.
And we weren't given that. We weren't given that talk in biology classes. What we did was we read in the book about plant reproduction, and then the part about human reproduction was just, okay, go home and read this.
Go home and read this, scatter the picture of like female and male anatomy, and that's it. And you're just sitting and wondering, what is this? Absolutely. What happens? How do babies come? Like what? Yeah, schools, I feel like if there's anyone from the school like industry or whatever watching, like it's really, really important to educate young children, boys and girls both, about sex and menstruation and reproductive parts, because exactly like she said, they played it, gave us one pad and they're like, yeah, now figure like how to stick it, how to remove it, come from a place of love, answer the questions of people. So yeah, in school it was completely haphazard.
Yeah, and it's nothing against our science teachers. Yeah. I think we had the best science teachers for our school, but the fact that we were in a girls' school made sex ed even easier.
Yeah,
why not do it? There's no boys to feel awkward from. Yeah. There's no boys, hey chalo boys, you leave now. It wasn't even a co-ed school, so why not educate us? Why not let us know what's going on in our body? Yeah. What needs to be done if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
Right?
It's only the most natural thing, I feel like. And it's Absolutely. So hidden, and it's like, no, let's not talk about our bodies. Like, yeah, 100%. Okay, so I have a confession to make you guys. I'm 29 years old, okay, and I have not been to a Gynax till date. Yeah, she's actually the first Gynax I ever like approached, and I was very nervous about it, and I know all of you are in the same boat with me. There are so many people who are so nervous to go to the Gynax, Divya. Like, it is so crazy, because I have a lot of girlfriends who still are petrified. They went to the Gynax only when they had like a cyst and things like that, you know. So we're all in our 29, 30s, and I've never been to a Gynax office. I've never shown anyone down there. So I don't know what's happening down there, you know, and it really opened my eyes as to, yes, after all of this COVID stuff is over, I really do need to visit the Gynax and check what's going on down there, since I'm 30 now. But still being nervous, I want you to tell me, like, what exactly happens when you go into a Gynax office? What do they ask you? Like, do they ask you really awkward questions, and do I need to have someone with me?
Exactly. So here's the point where I begin to tell you that it should not be awkward.
Okay.
Since our childhood, we haven't been told that telling someone your intimate secrets and telling someone how you feel about something, how you feel down there is not wrong. It's completely okay. Yeah. So when we were kids, there were some periods where we had a heavy flow, or there were some periods where we had a very scanty flow and we had irregular menses. So there have been times where our moms and the women in the family have been like, chalta hai, kabhi kabhi hota hai.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, theek hai, hota hai, but nahi hota hai, right?
Nahi hota hai.
So today I'm going to try and tell you about what is normal and what is not.
Okay.
So each time you go to a Gynax, trust me, it is not scary. We are not scary people. Do I look scary to you?
No.
So we're not scary people. So the flow in which it goes is, we first ask you your entire history.
Okay.
And I would want to point this out again and again, that doctor-patient confidentiality is something we take an oath about.
Okay.
Anything that you tell me in my office is not going to go behind those 4 closed walls, behind those closed doors. So it's not going to happen. So you come and you tell me your story, you tell me how you feel, you tell me about your emotions. I don't need to be your psychiatrist for that.
Yep.
I can just be your gynac for that. You can tell me what is going on down there, because it's such an intimate place.
Yeah.
Just like your brain is,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So what happens is, I'll ask you about your history. So when I talk about history, I'll ask you how your menses have been, when your last period was, whether you've been sexually active, whether you intend to be sexually active, whether you've had any babies or abortions in the past. Now in India, a woman being married or not is a major concern. So it's very sad. It still saddens me to be telling patients that I cannot do an internal examination if you're unmarried.
Whoa.
Yes, the request has to come from the patient. It has to be consensual. Whereas this isn't the case abroad. An internal examination is a must. A pap smear is a must when you get sexually active. It's something that must be done. It's not something that's so scary. It's not something that should create a taboo. Just like we may examine someone's bones, someone's fracture, someone's breasts, someone's ears, nose, that's the same way we are examining someone's internal orifices. That's completely okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we need to get okay with the fact that someone needs to check down there to know if it's all right.
Absolutely.
And there were times that doctors did not rely on tests like ultrasounds and blood tests, because they were never there.
Yeah.
So all they relied was on clinical examination,
on
seeing what the patient is going through, on hearing what the patient has to say, and knowing whether something down there is wrong or not.
Yeah.
So let us see. But in India, because we've not been through it since a very long time, we do take consent from unmarried women if they have an issue and they're okay with us checking down there. But 90% of the times, we do not.
That is so shocking for me to hear. So you're telling me that if I'm 30 years old or 35 years old today and unmarried, you cannot do an internal exam unless I give you consent?
Yes.
Wow.
And the sad part is, I have so many patients coming to me with menstrual issues, coming to me with something that cannot be seen on an ultrasound. I need to do an internal examination for, but they completely refuse. Because they are so scared. They have this taboo, or they have this notion in their head that
if you put an instrument or something, the hymen would tear.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is the scare.
That is the scare, and the fact that some foreign body is going inside. So there are so many times I'm finding it so funny that they are having penetrative sex and coming to me and they're not allowing me to put 2 fingers inside. I'm like, it's 2 fingers. Please, let me do it. But I do understand that it's not something we should be laughing about. I do understand what these patients are going through. And penetrative sex is something that they want to do by choice. And that's completely okay. But
again, it's health. You're so right, Divya. Like, I understand there's fun on one side, but at the end of the day, it's a doctor. They've done this 1,000 times and they just want to make sure you're okay.
So coming back to the history taking part, I'll ask you everything about your menses, whether you've had any medical history, whether you've had any disease in the past, any surgeries in the past, any blood transfusions. I'll ask you about your personal habits, like what kind of food you eat, what kind of addictions you may or may not have, what your sleep cycle is like, all of that. And please be honest with your doctor, because it makes so much of a difference, right? To all that I'm asking you, I can come to a diagnosis and reach to a conclusion only when I know you in and out. And I'll know you out when you tell me. I'll know you in when you let me see you. Right? So that's the history part. I'll ask you about your family history, because that's very important. There are so many disorders and diseases that could be genetic. So we need to, chalk that out and rule things out. After which we'll go on to general examination. So when we talk about general examination, on the whole, what you seem like, I'll be checking your weight, your height, what your eyes look like, whether you're looking anemic to me, whether there's any jaundice factor, whether your nails are normal, what your pulse is, what your blood pressure is, whether your cardiac system, your respiratory system, all of that is normal. After which, I'll go on to something called a systemic examination. So when it comes to Gynac examinations, we first do a per abdominal examination to check for any lump, or whether it's pregnancy, we'll be seeing the size of the uterus, we'll be seeing how the baby is doing, whether the baby is kicking, how the baby's heart rate is, things like that. After which we move on to a per speculum examination. So now a speculum is basically an instrument that has 2 blades. Those blades are not sharp, they are really blunt blades. They just open and they give us enough visibility to be checking the entire vaginal canal. That is your birth canal.
Good.
So what we see when we put in the speculum is your cervix and the vagina.
Okay.
So talking about cervix, we'll come to that part when we speak
Yes.
about the anatomy, and I'll explain everything. So that's what we can see, and that's where the abnormalities most of the times lie if there is a menstrual irregularity or any issue like that. So that's what we see, and we check and we can tell you what's going wrong and if there's any infection, all those things. So we get to know a lot by just a per speculum examination.
Understood.
So while I've done that, I'm just trying to see, right? After which I'll remove the speculum and I'll try and put in 2 of my fingers.
Okay.
Now putting 2 of my fingers inside means a per vaginal examination.
Okay.
So my fingers are going into the vaginal canal,
Yes.
and I'm just checking the size of your uterus, how it feels, whether the borders and all the sides are free or not, whether I'm feeling any lump or mass, whether I'm feeling any abnormality around my fingers. Because after multiple per vaginal examinations, we understand what is wrong and what is right. Obviously, we need a lot of blood tests and a lot of, ultrasounds and other tests to know what exactly is going wrong. But it does tell us a lot. In case of a pregnant woman, we check how dilated the cervix is.
Correct.
So that's the part that begins to open, and that's the part the baby comes down from. So a per speculum and a per vaginal examination is so important for us. It gives away so many things, and it helps us reach a diagnosis so easily for just 30 seconds of your discomfort. I am not going to lie, it is an uncomfortable examination. But if you trust your doctor, if you're okay with their process, if you breathe, it's going to be all right. It cannot be the worst experience in your life ever.
Yeah. That doesn't sound that scary. I mean, it's okay. I feel like it's a process you can like lean into.
Yeah, I'm booking you an appointment now. When are you coming for the examination?
I'm coming, Ace. I'm so like inclined and drawn towards it because you made it less scary. You told me what is gonna happen, and so now it's like always the fear of the unknown, right? Like I don't know what's about to come, and so I'm scared. But when you're telling me I'm gonna be doing this, it will be uncomfortable, I can prep myself for that. So yeah, we'll definitely be doing an examination super soon because I really want to know what's up. Okay, so I just wanted to ask you, is it okay to change your Gynax if you're uncomfortable with one or if you don't like vibe with one? Because I'm a very fluff person. So when I go to a doctor or anyone, I look for the fluff. So by fluff, I mean like, okay, come sit. Like how you're like, okay, listen, nothing's gonna happen. I'm here for you. I want that from my doctor. I don't want a robotic moral policing doctor who is just like, okay, this, come sit. Like I can't do that. So if I don't vibe with my Gynax, can I just like not go to her the next time and just?
Of course. I mean, it's completely your choice.
Yeah.
We are in a city where we have a population of 2 crore people, and still the doctors that are available are much lesser than the population needs, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many people out there that are made for the kind of person you are.
Yeah.
Now there may be someone who just does not want that vibe and is okay with, doctor, just tell me what I need and I'm going home.
Acha.
And then there are people who need someone to discuss with them, someone to tell them what their issue may be, someone to make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So no one is wrong or right here, but it's all about your comfort, right?
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable in your clothes, you're going to change them.
So guys, we're going to begin our first topic. It's understanding the basic anatomy of the female reproductive system. So we're going to let Dr. Divya Vora take over from here on. So
we are going to make this a learning session.
Ooh,
so you're going to hold this as well.
We got pictures in here.
So before we start, can you just tell me something very basic? Can you tell me what you think the vagina is?
Okay, so I'll tell you, I've learned this like very recently, but I really thought the vagina is like everything down there. Like the vagina is it. But I've recently learned that it is like the birth canal. That's all I know.
That is very impressive. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. She is learning the fact that she needs to learn. So please let's learn the difference between very basic body parts.
Yeah.
So basically the female reproductive system has external organs and internal organs. So basically this is your external genitalia.
Okay.
Now what you learn about external is that it's outside, right? It's something that you can see. But has any of us ever seen these parts clearly? Have we seen it other than pictures and our science textbooks? No, there is a way of doing that. So our makeup cameras that we use in front of our face and do our stuff, and we use for our eyebrows and for our eyeliners, you just have to put it down there and check how your external genitalia looks.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it. Why not know what it should be looking like? So what we're talking about here is the vulva, that is the external genitalia. I'm going to speak about it in very basic terms. So what you see up here is the fat layer. What you see in front, that is on your body, is the fat layer, which is covered with multiple small thick hairs, which is completely normal. It's okay to have pubic hair. If you don't get pubic hair, that is something we need to worry about.
Okay.
So if one is getting thick, dark pubic hair, nothing to worry about. There are a lot of ways of removing it. There are a lot of ways to be okay with it, right? So that part is known as the mons pubis. It's nothing you need to remember, but you should know. Moving on, we have the lips of the vulva. Now, the lips are the labia majora, which is the outer fat layer over here, and then the labia minora, which is the inner pinkish layer over here, right? After that, what you need to know about is the clitoris. Now, the clitoris is the part which is most sensitive. It is literally the part that gives you best sexual experiences. So, that's what you need to know about this. After which you have the part of the vaginal canal. Now the vaginal canal is basically a passage. This part what we see outside is not a vagina.
Yes.
It's a vulva. So everyone remember, when you're talking about a vagina so loosely, don't talk about internal passages, don't talk about the birth canal. We are talking about the vulva only. And once you enter the vaginal canal, that is the part that connects the outside, the external, to the internal organs, right? Just above that, you have the urethral orifice. Now, the urethra is the passage through which urine comes out.
Correct.
In women, this is how it's placed. The clitoris, then the urethral orifice, and then the vaginal canal.
And that's the anus.
Yes, that's the anus, which is much below.
Much lower.
Yeah.
That's so simple. Very easy to understand. Thank you, actually. So this is the vulva.
Yes.
Understood.
This part is the vulva. All of it together.
Understood. Thank you so much. That is the basic anatomy of what's going on down there. Now you guys know it's not a vagina, it's a vulva. Okay, so I definitely know the fallopian tubes like that. I remember it being that, and I know the ovaries are the two, I would say like flowers or bags towards the end of the fallopian tube. And I know the egg like just travels through the fallopian tube. Yeah, that's all I know so far about this when I saw this. And I've definitely heard of obviously the uterus, and I know the cervix, vagina, yes. I've heard of endometrium, but I don't know what myometrium is. I have no idea about that, I'll be very honest. And I've not heard about fundus. Fundus, yeah.
Right.
These two, I'll be very honest, I've not heard about.
Okay, so I'm really impressed by the stuff that you know, Malvika, like you're getting a 10 on 10 on that, okay? So the 99.9 you were talking about, that's where you are right now.
I'm Divya.
So let's talk about the internal organs. It's very basic. The main things you need to know about are the uterus, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries.
Okay.
Now the uterus is divided into the body and the lower part, which is the cervix, which connects to the vagina, and the vagina is to the outer part, vulva, that we learned just 2 minutes ago. Other than that, we have the fallopian tubes, which obviously are tubes connected to the uterus, to the body of the uterus. Then we have the ovaries. Basically, don't you think ovaries look like eggs?
Yeah.
They look like eggs. So that's where your eggs are stored.
Okay.
The ovaries are the storehouses of all the eggs you'll ever have in your reproductive life.
Okay.
Okay. Other than that, let's talk about this part. So the fundus is basically just the crown of the uterus.
Okay.
Okay. It comes into play when we are talking about positions of say fibroids, or to know which part is where. So a fundus is not something that I would expect you to remember.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So Malvika, do you know a fun fact? The uterus normally just measures 7 centimeters in height, is hardly 5 centimeters in width, and is 1.25 centimeter thick.
Okay.
The same uterus can become 35 centimeters in length when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
That is the power of this muscular organ. So the capacity of a uterus in a non-pregnant state is hardly 5 to 10 ml, and it becomes 500 to 1000 times that in pregnancy.
Yeah.
Now the weight of a uterus in a non-pregnant state is hardly 50 to 60 grams, and in pregnancy becomes 900 grams to 1 kg.
Damn.
That is the power of this one muscular organ. That's what this can do. And the whole talk about pregnancy being miraculous and childbirth being miraculous, this is that organ. Trust me, it's my favorite organ in the body.
Really? Oh,
And it should be yours too.
Yeah.
Please get to know your uterus, your internals, your externals. That's when you learn to love it. And we need to realize that it's not just the externals we need to love, right?
Yes.
We need to fall in love with our internals also to take care of it.
Yeah.
Moving on, let me tell you what the ovaries are. Now the ovaries simply look like eggs. So remember that the parts that look like eggs are storehouses of our eggs.
Yeah.
They're also responsible of release of eggs in every cycle,
Okay.
right? So each menstrual cycle has a release of the egg. Now once the egg is released from the ovary, it is picked up by these projections. See, can you see these finger-like projections?
Yeah.
They are known as fimbriae. Look at the magic. Fingers are picking up the egg and is going via this tube known as the fallopian tube.
Yeah.
So here, let's consider this is a garden where girlfriend and boyfriend meet. So this is the part where egg meets sperm.
Okay.
That is the part where conception occurs.
Here.
Yes. Here is where the formation of a little tiny fetus begins, and then it travels and comes to the uterine wall, and that is where it grows. This is the most expansile area. The body of the uterus is the most expansile area. It can grow in size and it can give all the nutrition to the baby. That is the purpose of the body of the uterus.
Okay.
Now, if that does not happen, if there's no sperm, the egg has nowhere to go, the egg meets no sperm, the uterus is angry. So, along with the unfertilized egg, the lining of the uterus that has become so tortuous and it has so many blood vessels needs to be released. They are like, we're so irritated, we need the frustration to get out of here. So that will be released, and that is your period. So the unfertilized egg, along with a lot of mucus fluids, along with blood, along with the endometrial lining, is going to come down through the cervix, through your vaginal canal, and then what you see is menstrual blood.
Wow. That is so easily understood now by me because it seems so complicated. Okay, so it meets here. If it doesn't meet here, it goes down and it sheds.
Exactly.
That's your period.
Your endometrial lining is shedding with the unfertilized egg. That's what is happening.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
Now coming to your particular question about what the myometrium is. Myometrium is basically the thick muscular layer of the uterus. And the endometrium inside is the layer that is making all the secretory glands and having all the blood. So that's what comes down in the period.
Okay.
The myometrium is not shed, the outer lining is not shed, only the inner lining is shed. पर्दा गिरा दिया, पर्दा endometrium है, तो endometrium गिर जाता है, पर्दा गिर जाता है.
So can you take us through what happens in the menstrual cycle?
I'm loving this inquisitivity. I'm loving how you're asking me questions and I can give you my knowledge.
Yeah.
So put in very simple terms, our menstrual cycle is divided into 3 different phases.
Okay.
The follicular phase, that is when the eggs are beginning to grow and come out and get released. Then there is the ovulatory phase where ovulation occurs. That is the part one can get pregnant. And then is the luteal phase. Okay. So what happens basically in this is that what we need to know and understand is that ovulation occurs in the middle of a menstrual cycle.
Okay.
Right? Now, a normal menstrual cycle can range between 21 days to 35 days.
Yeah.
Say you are getting your period, that is you are getting your bleeding phase every 21 days, that can be considered normal. I'm getting it every 28 days, can be considered normal. 28 days is taken as the average, but 21 days is fine, 35 days is fine. So we need to understand that each time we are getting our menses every 21 days, it may not be abnormal because that's how our cycle is. That's how we are functioning. And if someone having a 28-day cycle is suddenly having a 21-day cycle or a 35-day cycle or is having irregular cycles, that's your alarm. That's your red flag. You need to find out what's gone wrong.
Okay, so if one wants to get pregnant, when is like the best time? Which phase is the best time to get pregnant?
Exactly. So this is something that we as obstetricians and gynacs tell our patient that they have to try and get pregnant during their ovulation period.
Yeah.
This is the time when the egg is released. This is the time when the female leaves her house to meet the male. This is the time she's allowed to meet her boyfriend, right? So there's a lot of hormonal surge at that time. The hormones that we're dealing with here are estrogen, progesterone, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Okay. I'm just going to name them. I know it gets a little too heavy, but this is something we should know, that the luteinizing hormone plays a major role in ovulation.
Okay.
Okay, ovulation is basically release of an egg.
Okay. In simple terms.
That's what happens. So now we're also fortunate that we have these period calendars and apps where we can check our ovulation. So if you've noticed and if you've had a 28-day cycle, you will see that the period of ovulation occurs around in a cycle of 28 days, it will occur around 10 to 16 days.
Yeah.
So day 14 will be the day you're
Correct.
ovulating.
Day 14. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the day you're supposed to have sexual intercourse. Now, a lot of people think that it's okay to have sexual intercourse 10 times a day on that day, or one should have continuous sexual intercourse.
Yeah.
One should have it throughout the cycle, but that also exhausts the man, right? Even the man's sperm quality decreases, even the semen quality decreases.
Okay.
So we need to make sure that we're using the ovulation window really well when trying to get pregnant.
Okay.
So from day 10 to day 16 is when someone is supposed to have sexual intercourse just one time a day.
Okay.
There is no particular advice about position. There is no particular advice about time of the day. Not at all. Please enjoy the process. Anyone dealing with infertility, anyone dealing with a lot of stress around this should make sure they're seeing the ovulation on their calendar. Other than that, we also have a lot of kits in the market which help you know whether you're ovulating or not. Just like the pregnancy kit, there's an ovulation kit which checks your urine. With just 3 drops of urine, you can know whether you're ovulating or not and try and plan your pregnancy around that.
And if you don't want to get pregnant, we should avoid that day, right, Divya?
So like now this is something that is commonly believed that you don't have sex during your ovulation period, and if you don't and you don't use contraception on other days, you won't get pregnant. That is not true. Please understand that even though the chances of getting pregnant are much lesser before and after your ovulation period, it can still happen. It can. One can get pregnant even if they're having period sex. Even though the chances are much lesser, it can still happen. I cannot stress enough on the use of contraception. If you don't plan on getting pregnant, please don't do it to your bodies. Please don't let your bodies have to go through the whole process of termination. It's scarring your uterine tissue. It's literally scarring it. Like how we undergo trauma and you know, we're so scarred by it. This is what is happening to your tissue. So don't let it happen. It's so easy to use contraception, right? There are so many methods. We'll obviously get to that.
We'll talk about definitely
later.
Okay, cool. So we understood the cycle in simple terms. What are the different types of flow or like the color of blood that we can sense whether it's healthy or not?
Exactly. So this again is something that people don't know much about. It's completely okay to have like blackish and brownish discharge in the beginning of your period. Because that is like old blood shedding. And then when your period is in full flow because of the hormonal changes, it's going to be bright red blood or dark red blood. That is completely normal. Don't worry about it at all. But there are women who may have just blackish discharge, they may have just brownish discharge or have pinkish discharge. So when it's pinkish, there is a possibility that it's combining with the cervical fluid and there is a possibility of infection. Also, when it's pinkish, there is a possibility of anemia, that is reduced hemoglobin in the body. Your blood ideally should be bright red or dark red. If it's pink, it's something you should just take a little note into and probably ask your gynac why it's happening or get an examination done. Other than that, if you experience grayish discharge during your menses, that is something you really need to look into because that definitely indicates infection. Other than that, there's orangish. Now, orangish is very close to pinkish. So that again means it could be mixing with cervical fluid for some reason or the other, like infection. So on the whole, dark red blood, brownish, bright red blood is completely okay. Blackish discharge before your period completely starts is completely okay.
Alright, that's amazing. I have a question. Apart from the blood, there's something else that comes out, right? There are like tissues, like thick something that's coming out.
Absolutely.
What is that?
So what happens is it's not actual real blood flow, right? Now suppose you get a scratch, blood is going to flow out and it's going to be watery. Right? But when it comes to periods, like I told you, there's the unfertilized egg. There's the endometrial lining. There's going to be clots from previous bleeding that has happened inside your uterus, which is shed only after a certain point. So all of that coming together is eventually your menstrual blood. Do you know we actually only lose a teaspoon of blood during menstruation?
No way.
That's all. Menstrual bleeding cannot ideally lead to anemia only when it's abnormal, only when it's a very heavy flow due to some pathological cause. That is when it will lead to anemia. Otherwise, you and I would be having hemoglobin 1 and 2, right?
Correct.
So you don't lose a lot of blood when it comes to menstruation. It looks like that, but it's hardly 1 to 2 teaspoons.
Wow. So Divya, we hear a lot about have safe sex, right? So can you just talk a little bit about that and define what safe sex really means? The second myth is, so first time I'm reading this, food gets spoiled.
The pickle doesn't know you have your menses.
So I'm going to let Divya take over and talk to you about the different types of contraceptions like condoms, birth control pills, etc. There are many. Fourth one, do not walk under a tree during your period. It attracts ghosts.
I think there's nothing scarier than a menstruating woman, is there? So if there's anyone who needs to be scared, it's the people around under that tree. Aane do ghost ko. It's okay.